It was in East Village. It was like a year that I was on. It was a year and a half ago. And it feels like 5 years ago. OpenSea, we started it in 2017 at the very, very end. Devin, my co-founder, and I were exploring crypto as a potential new frontier for tech. Other big tech revolutions, like birth of computing, the birth of the internet.
How did you do that?
We, all these projects, they either had Discord servers that were powering the community and letting people talk to each other, letting owners talk to each other, so they were just pretty easy to join. Some of them had subreddits, but Discord played a pretty big role. And then there was Decentraland after that, and CryptoKitties after that. And CryptoKitties, again, very humble project. It was a hackathon project, and it turned out to be way bigger.
At what hackathon?
From East Waterloo. In
Waterloo.
At the end of 2017.
Wow. Yeah, Canada's played a role.
Yeah, and that was by the Dapper Labs team. They helped discover something incredibly new and important, and it was not it seemed like something brand new for the web that existed on a fundamental level. It was a new primitive for the internet. You have web pages, which are a primitive, and you have cryptocurrencies, which are a primitive. And then you have these things, NFTs, which are really different from web pages, discoverable by Google, and from cryptocurrencies discovered on an exchange. So we wanted to build, they exist somewhere in between, but we wanted to build a marketplace or a way of discovering this new type of primitive thing.
And who's we?
That I had in college, that he went to high school program.
And you met him like, oh, just as a friend, and then, or did you meet?
Met him as a friend through tech things in San Francisco. We worked on this crypto project that let you mine or earn a cryptocurrency from your router when it's not using any bandwidth, when you're not at home. And
how did that go?
Yeah,
A little early?
Very early. We got into Y Combinator with that idea, but that was right at the end of the year when we were noticing that NFTs were more than just.
At the end of 16?
At the end of 17.
At the end of 17.
We pivoted like first day of the week. We just stood up and they introduced us as Wi-Fi coin, and we were like, wait, hold on. We're actually completely different. We thought, we thought this new primitive would be best discoverable on something that looked more like eBay than Coinbase or Google. So we called it EtherBay, and it had obviously a lot of nautical themed assets as a risk on the openness of it, and that's where OpenSea came from.
And so you start the company and lots of challengers early on. Who was the first money in?
Besides Y Combinator, it was...
And just real quick, how would you describe the Y Combinator experience?
A pretty phenomenal group of people. Learned a lot from the other people in our cohort and the rest of the group. The partners are very focused on building something people want and talking to users aggressively. So that, and I think that became a big part of our DNA early on as a result.
And so you graduate, then first money in? After them?
After them, we started talking to Kevin Hartz, who was a partner at Founders Fund at the time. He was one of the Eventbrite co-founders. And Nick Tomeno at One Confirmation, and we talked about Capital.
I met Nick when he...
And then we did our seed round with a bunch of others, but mainly those three.
And so you start the company, you're going along. What was there a point where you thought you weren't going to make it?
There were definitely slow months, many slow months. We thought it would. We didn't know if we were really early. Turns out we were.
Or wrong. Yeah.
Or wrong. Yeah. It was quite a long. There were some months of just no growth, some months of decline, It was
Those
very
must have
dependent.
sucked.
Yeah, it was
Because
very.
you extrapolate out, it's not pretty.
Yeah, it all looks really small when like
Yeah.
shift the axis further and further to the left. It's also very dependent on projects. Like there were some months where we did see a lot of volume. It wasn't very diversified. It was a little bit, yeah. And then it just became more and more diversified, especially in this year after February.
Was there a moment where you said, "Oh my God," or was it just gradual?
After February this year, we saw some projects do really, really well, especially projects that blended art with technology in novel ways and that built communities.
Can you name any specific ones?
Hashmasks was an early one from February that did really well, and they built a really strong community. They had a
How do you say they built a strong community?
Context: a community is a group of people with a shared interest, and in Web3, we're taking it one step further and adding shared incentives. And with NFTs, we kind of add another element of fixed supply. So a community of NFT holders, there's fixed supply or at least predictable supply around who can be really in the community and who can prove that they're a member. And this means that the creator can just generate all this interest and all this excitement and all they have to do is just make what they make and do what they do. And people in the community will do the marketing for them and will build products that are interoperable with the NFTs, that add value to them, and just to set up an NFT for a community.
Kev, you talk about how your thoughts of NFTs have evolved over time, about what they are and what they can become.
Well, we've really just scratched the surface. For context, there's just a few million users in the space. Gaming, there's over 1 billion digital gamers in the world, and just the number of users is a lot smaller than it could be, in part because crypto is still hard to access. And improving the on-ramp for lots of audiences around the world and to set up an NFT for a community.
Kev, you talk about how your thoughts of NFTs have evolved over time, about what they are and what they can become.
Well, we've really just scratched the surface. For context, there's just a few million users in the space. Gaming, there's over 1 billion digital gamers in the world, and just the number of users is a lot smaller than it could be, in part because crypto is still hard to access. And improving the on-ramp for lots of audiences around the world. On the content side...
So what are you doing to further that?
Work on that? We have a couple projects coming that will make it a lot easier for you to buy NFTs directly on whatever blockchain they're backed by. Most of the NFTs that we see being created are being created on Polygon.